What is Stockholm Syndrome and what does it have to do with cops covering their ass? What is Stockholm Syndrome? Stockholm Syndrome is a coping mechanism to a captive or abusive situation. People develop positive feelings towards their captors or abusers over time. This condition applies to situations including child abuse, coach-athlete abuse, relationship abuse, and sex trafficking. Where does it come from? In 1973, there was a hostage situation in Stockholm. 4 bank employees were held hostage in a bank over the course of 6 days. And after it all ended, they all declined to participate in the prosecution. One of the psychologists who had worked with the cops in the hostage negotiation situation was like, oh my God, these hostages must have been brainwashed by their captors. This is a new phenomenon. I must write about it. So already not like a disinterested party analyzing what was going on. The thing is, the cops had done kind of a reckless job in this whole hostage situation. They had pointed guns at the captors, but also the hostages. The prime minister even called one of the hostages and said, hey, you might have to die rather than us give in to the captors' demands. Like, you might have to die to save the country money. I don't know about you, but I would also be disinclined to work for months and months for the people who had done that to me. The same hostage who the prime minister talked to even has like publicly stated, hey, yeah, I was nice to our captor during this hostage situation. It wasn't because I thought he was some good guy. It was because I wanted him not to kill me. I was the one manipulating the situation. Again, this doesn't mean that no one in the history has never developed a coping mechanism where they develop affection towards their captor or abuser. I personally think it does happen, but generally when we tend to talk about Stockholm Syndrome now, we're talking about something that happens over the course of like months, years, not 6 days. What is the bystander effect and what does it have to do with cops lying? First of all, what is the bystander effect? The bystander effect is a social psychological theory that states that individuals are less likely to offer help to a victim when there are other people present. But where does it come from? In 1964, a woman named Kitty Genovese was brutally murdered in New York City. And at the time, it was widely reported that 38 of her neighbors watched for at least half an hour as she was murdered and did nothing. This prompted a lot of national soul searching. What have we become? Which led psychologists to theorize that maybe nobody did anything because they just expected everybody else to do something. The thing is, the story about the 38 witnesses watching and doing nothing was a total lie. Basically, nobody could actually see what was happening. They could hear, and several of them did call the cops. It should be noted that this was before 911. 911 was actually implemented on a nationwide scale because of this case. But still, people made the conscious effort to reach out to the police. And Kitty Genovese actually died in the arms of a friend who heard her screams, ran out into the darkness, with like no concern for her own personal safety, and stayed with her friend as she died. So what does any of this have to do with cops covering their ass? Well, first of all, it is a little embarrassing that people called them and they did nothing to stop the murder. But probably even more embarrassing is that when they did arrest the murderer, he confessed to murdering another woman. What's embarrassing about that? They had another man in custody who had also confessed to that woman's murder. And the original reporter who wrote the story about the 38 people watching and doing nothing was originally calling about that discrepancy. And instead, the NYPD gave this reporter a really juicy story about how ordinary New Yorkers had turned into heartless monsters in the face of brutality. I think technically the bystander effect could still be a real phenomenon, broken clocks and all that. I'll do Stockholm Syndrome next.